South Africans living abroad have been casting their ballots in different South African missions on Friday and yesterday. Another day of voting in London will take place today because of the large number of South Africans there. With us is SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena to tell us more about the voting abroad. A very good morning to you, Sophie. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, another watershed moment, especially for South Africans living abroad. In particular, we're going to focus on London, which has recorded the biggest number of South Africans voting internationally, with the figures at around 24,000 registered voters. Just take us back about what happened really yesterday and how voting went.
Well, it started on Friday where they were able to allow people who came from different parts of the United Kingdom, including Scotland, to vote. And then, of course, yesterday it was a big day. We saw those long queues and the atmosphere at the polling station at South Africa House in Trafalgar Square. And today, this process will continue because you have, as you pointed out, many people who have registered to vote at that polling station. But I think the Electoral Commission did prepare, and therefore you could see that there was a smooth process, and those who went there to cast their ballot were very, very, very happy. And even today, I think voting has started 7 a.m. and the polling station will close at 9 p.m. The local time. It will be 10 p.m. South African time. So today we are going to see those videos, those South Africans back in Trafalgar Square or at Trafalgar Square, and we'll see that color again playing itself because yesterday it was a colorful day at Trafalgar Square.
It certainly was, and even in New York City, we saw a package there by Sherwin Bryce Peace. South Africans turning out in their numbers, voting at the different foreign missions and embassies and consulates. Then what does the law say then with regards to the Electoral Amendment Act? Because so many questions have been asked about online voting, and not much is being said about that particular aspect.
Well, in terms of South Africa, the electoral process, we are still doing this process manual. You know that we haven't moved to electronic system. And yes, technology is available, but I think you have to convince the population, you have to convince political parties to move to that. Some countries on the continent did adopt electronic voting, but they revert back to manual voting. And therefore, even in the United States of America right now, there's a huge debate whether the best option is not the manual process. As you know, that the last election, it was contested, particularly the presidential election. So I think for now, yes, you have technology, and it has been introduced in many areas, particularly in relation to registration. You know that many people, young people, that's why you have a large number of young people who have registered. They were able to use technology, which saw political parties, particularly those that are led by young people like your economic freedom fighters, using that electronic system to rally students at institutions of higher learning to register in numbers, even having little concerts or rally or festivals, and the entrance there was bring your ID, and then they would then register when registration was still allowed. And therefore, yes, we have already started using electronic systems, but in terms of voting and counting, you still have to include manual processes like verification. When you do it, you have the agents there of different parties. And yeah, I think that's a mixture of moving to electronic, but we are still at this moment using manual voting.
Right. Now, Sophie, let's talk about the political parties' appetite to try canvass for votes, especially for the expatriates and South Africans living abroad. What have you seen in terms of those parties trying to spend as much money and more resources? Because I do understand that it takes parties with much deeper pockets, so to speak, to try and canvass for votes and try implementing campaigns internationally.
Yes, indeed. Many parties have invested lots and lots of resources, and depending on what you have, we saw IEC releasing the information in relation to donations to political parties. There are political parties with deep pockets, but you saw what happened. One party that was hoping to challenge or to contest the elections couldn't even make it, because much as they had millions, they were given more than 30 million rand, but they couldn't even collect signatures. That's what election is all about. It's not about your money. It's about understanding elections. If you don't have experience of elections, you will be found wanting. That is why the breakaways, people who have been in other political parties because they've been part of election machinery of those political parties, are able to do that. That's why you also have independent candidates, because some of them, they've been in political parties and very sophisticated political parties, and they have learned the tricks. You see, even now with new parties that came in after 2000, you can see that some of those breakaways or people who have decided to form political parties, they have skills because they come from political parties. So yes, you can have money, but at the end of the day, remember, you can have a packed rally, but the reality is, it is the millions who are sitting at home that you must convince, because those who go to rallies are the converted. And therefore, that's where you win elections. Being on the ground, contact with people, and that's where the door-to-door sometimes is very important, because people are able to express themselves and they can review their position. But you can fill the stadium. Those are the people, your supporters. You don't even have to convince them. It's about millions of people who are sitting at home.